Hello friends, in this session we are going to see the instance control flow of a program with a inheritance, right? And in the last session we have seen the instance control flow, but not with inheritance. Here we are going to see the instance control flow of a program with inheritance. So suppose you have a class A, and A class is having some instance variable, say int x is having some value 10, and you have an instance block and prints here a SOP statement instance initialization block in A class, right? And it prints the SOP statement of x and prints the SOP statement of y. Y also I cannot write directly, so I'll write here this dot y, right? Then y is declared here, y is equal to say 20, right? Then it has class B, and B extends A, right? B extends A. Now B class is also having two instance variable, int I is equal to 99, and one instance block. Instance block is printing SOP statement of instance initialization block of A and prints the I value and prints the J value, right? I value and J value, and J is int J is equal to say some 8, right? This is class A and class B. Then you have class test. So you have class test. In test class you have main methods, a public, static, and void. Main string type array here, and I'm creating an object of say B class. B1 is new B, right? New B. And then say I'll print SOP statement of B1 of I and SOP statement of B1 of J and B1 of X and B1 of Y, right? So this is the main method. Now when you execute this with Java and test, right, when you write like this, then JVM starts executing and it requests the memory from the operating system, and the memory is again divided into multiple parts. From there we'll take say this is JVM memory, and you have here a method area, you have a method area and stack and heap, right? Now how it works is say I'll assume class test. You say this is test class is loaded, test, and main method starts execution, main started, and when you will say B1 is equal to new B, then for this B1 is one reference variable, local variable B1, and the size of this is 8 byte because it is a reference variable. Now when you will say new B class should be loaded, but before loading B class, B is having A class is super class, so first A class should be loaded. In last tutorial we have seen the static control flow of class A and B with inheritance relationship. So here I'm just telling that A is loaded and then B class is also going to be loaded. So B is loaded. Now when you say new B, then from this it has to load the B class constructor, default constructor, right? B class default constructor is loaded. So here even if you are not writing, actually it has a B class default constructor, and inside the default constructor the first statement is super. This is super, And because of that, because of this statement, super keyword, it is super, and this, it means super class default constructor has to be invoked, and in this case super class is A, so it will call the A class default constructor, right? So here you have a super, and because of this, on top of this another stack frame will be generated, and on this it is calling A class default constructor, right? Then A is also having a default constructor by default, and here also first statement is super, right? So on that, again it is having super, and it calls the super class default constructor. In that case, A class is having by default extends object class. So A class super class is extend class, and this super calls the object class default constructor, and here object class default constructor is loaded. When object class default constructor is loaded, objects get created inside the heap, and then instance control flow starts. When instance control flow starts, in this case inheritance, first JVM identifies all the instance members of all the classes. So here instance member of class A is having, so this is 1, X is instance member, one instance block, and another instance member Y. In B class also it is having so identify child class member. So this is, here it is 4th, and this is 5th instance block, and this is 6th variable. So all identification is done. Once all the identification is done, then it has to allocate the memory for all the instance variable in both the classes in the same object. So first one is X, memory is allocation, it is X is allocated, and the value gets here 0, right? Then Y is there, and Y is also allocated, and that value is also 0. Then I memory is allocated, I is 0, and J is allocated, that is also 0. This is object initialization is done. Now, so this is identification and initialization of the variable is done, and then object creation, then it is okay. Then it has to go through the next phase in the next run, and there it has to complete the instance variable initialization with the hard-coded values if available, and it has to execute the static block also. But in this, when it initializes, with the second phase, when it starts, it has to complete in the first parent class first, and then only it has to go to the child class, right? So what it will do is 10 will be assigned to X in this phase, 10 will be assigned to X, and then it has a instance block, and it prints here instance initialization block in A, and then it has X should be X is already initialized, so this gets here 10, and Y is this dot Y, so Y is not initialized, so it is this dot Y, and it is having Y value is 0 at this point. Then study instance block first execution is over, then comes at this point, right? And this is actually the Y value is initialized with 20. Now here we have taken here one constructor also, right? And in constructor, say we have not written any statement, but assume here if I write one statement, say it is a default constructor in this, right? It is a default constructor. This also is there, assume. Then what it has to do is after completing the execution of instance variable, instance block, and this instance variable also, then remaining statement means control flows from here to this, and remaining statement of the constructor should be executed, and here you have this statement a default constructor. This should be executed, right? So here after printing this, it has to print here a, and it is a default constructor, right? At that time B even not started also, second phase B not started even. So once the complete operation of class A is done, then control comes to the next B class constructor, and in that again it completes the second phase and it starts again top to bottom approach, and I will be initialized with 99. I will be initialized with 99. Then instance block, it executes instance initialization block in A, and it prints the I value, which is 99, and it prints the J value. J directly cannot write it in this way, so you have to write here this dot J, right? And J value is, say J value is 0, it is printing, right? Then J gets initialized with 88, and then the remaining statement of B class constructor. So here I'll write, assume it is B default constructor, something I'll write. So here you have SOP statement of B default constructor, right? So this statement has to execute, and once this is also over, then control comes into this place where it has gone and it come into B. So the address of this is say 1020. 1020 is assigned here, and B starts pointing to this, right? So here important point you have to notice here is that the first phase, when JVM just control is at this point and it creates the object, at that point what JVM is going to do is it is going to identify all the instance members in superclass and in subclass both. So identification is from here A1, and this is 2, and this is 3, 4, and 5 and 6. All identification is done in both the classes, and all the classes instance variable memory is allocated and initializes that with the default values. So once that is done, then in the next phase, first it completes the superclass first, and in superclass is it initializes all the instance variable with hard-coded values if available, and executes the instance block also in the same order how it appears in the source file. So first X gets initialized, then instance block execute, then Y gets initialized. Once this is done, then the constructor of A class starts execution, and whatever statements are there in the class, this completes the execution. Then control comes to class B constructor. Then in B class, means in subclass, again it performs all the operations. Again it initializes 99 to I, and again instance block executes. Again this blocks also J also initializes with 88. Then the constructor remaining statement starts execution, right? So this point you have to take care very carefully, that in the second phase, first superclass, all the instance variable and instance block executes in the same order how that appears, and then only it goes to the constructor, and remaining statement of the constructor starts execution and finish. Once that is over, then it comes to control comes to the class B subclass, and in subclass also all the instance variable and instance block executes in the same order how it appears, and then the remaining statement of the constructor gets executed, and then control comes back to this location, right? So this is and here it carries the address also of that object and it stores into B, and B starts pointing into this. Now the object creation is over, and all this stack frame gets destroyed, and finally you have only the main, and main is having B1, and B1 is pointing to this object. Now this task is finished. Now you can come into control is at this point, and B.I value. What is the B.I value? I value is 99 at this point, and then you can come here B.J is 88, and B.X is 10, and B.Y is 20, right? So this is execution is over, main method is finished, and that is also get destroyed, and all the memory returns back to the operating system. So this is the instance control flow with inheritance relationship. Now let's try this program with an example in Eclipse. So I have a instance variable, so this is a 10, and one instance block. So this is not A, it is this dot Y, and this is having actually instance initialization block in A, and this is Y in static, right? Then class B extends A, then I is instance variable, another instance block, and this is instance initialization block in B, and it is this dot J, and J is initialized. Of course these are having some default constructors. I'll write here A, and it is A default constructor, and then in B also I'll have a default constructor B, and this is B default constructor, right? And one more thing you have to notice here, the members of the class in this class B, what are the members I am having now is class B is a constructor, one instance variable, one instance block, another instance variables, right? Another instance variable. So the members of the class, these are the members of this class B, again these are the members of class A. The members of the class can be in any order. A constructor can be here, or a constructor can be at last also. An instance block can be here, or it can be at last also, or it can be at beginning also. So members of the class can be in any order. But however these members are defined in this class, when JVM is executing, JVM always follows that execution control flow of either instance control flow or a static control flow. So here what I'll do is now B1 and new B, and I'll print here B1 of I and B1 of J, and say B1 of X and B1 of Y, right? So this is the program. Now when I'll run this, what it has to do is it has to first, when I will say here new B control is coming into B constructor, right? It is in B class constructor. So in B class constructor is this is called B class constructor is loaded. In this first statement you have by default super, or if you want to write you can write it, or you can refer my video in related to super keyword we have already discussed. So from here it goes to A class constructor. In that also first statement is again super, and it goes to object class default constructor. When it goes to object class default constructor, it creates an object and the identification of the members in the class A and class B. So here instance variable 1, and this is instance block 2, and this is 3. Same way here you have I, so it is 4, instance block is 6, and you have one more instance variable, so that is 7 assume. And all that identification is done. X gets the memory here, this is 0, Y gets the memory 0, I gets the memory 0, J gets the memory, and that is 0. So first step is done, first stage is done. So in the second stage what JVM has to do is till class A first it has to complete. So not constructor, okay, not constructor. From here X gets value, that is 10, then instance block get executed, it is printing IIB in A, right? The next value has to be printed, that is 10, and this dot y value is 0 at that point. So then Y gets initialized with 20. Once this execution is over, this is also over, and this is also over, then control goes to the constructor back and executes the remaining statement of that. So here it prints A default constructor, right? Now class B also, in class B also it completes the remaining operation the same way. So first I gets initialized with 99, this is 99, then instance initialization block in B, and it prints the what are the values we are printing? It prints the I value, and the I value at that point is 99, prints J value is 0, then I is J is initialized with 88, so this is 88. Once this complete operation is over, then the remaining statement of the constructor is going to be executed, right, in this. So it prints here B default constructor, right, B default constructor. Once this complete execution is over, that time object is ready, and object address is assigned to this B1, and this is also ready, right? So this is also done, B is ready, and now this is assigning is done. Now B1.I value is 99, so it prints here 99. B1.J value, this is actually B1 is pointing to this, right? And B1.J value is at that time 88, so it prints here 88. B1.X value is 10, so it prints here 10, and B1.Y is 20. So this is the execution flow, and this should be the output of this program, right? Now let's execute this program and see the output. Run it. and it is this, right? A instance block of A and 10 is, it is from this place, right? Instance block of A and X is 10, and this dot Y at that time, this dot Y is 0, so it is printing 0. Then the constructor of A, but constructor was invoked first. Okay, constructor was invoked first and it executed at last. Then again same way it goes to class B instance block, it is I value and J value, then B default constructor. Once this complete execution is over, then control comes at this point and address return back to B1. Now B1.I, it is 99, B1.J 88, B1.X 10, and B1.Y is 20. So this is the execution output of this program, right? So this is the instance control flow with inheritance, how the program executes with instance control flow and with inheritance relation, and in the execution flow of all the instance blocks and constructor and instance variable initialization and all that we have seen here. In the next session we are going to see the instance control flow and static control flow together. Okay, thanks for watching my video and please subscribe for more videos.